Good morning. My name is Vladimir Tikhomirov. I'm chief economist at BCS Global Markets, and I'll give you my outlook in the macro area for the coming week. The coming week would not be very heavy in the news flow. However, we are expecting to see a number of key macro reports from Russian Statistical Office. The first one would be industrial production data, and towards the end of the week, Rostat is scheduled to release its monthly report. In these reports, I actually expect to see continued improvement in Russian macro trends. We have seen that already happening in the fourth quarter. So January statistics should show further improvement in the industrial area as well as in the area of consumption. It will be still in the negative field, but dynamic could actually turn more positive than we have seen thus far. One key parameter to watch here is actually the inflation data, including the weekly inflation data. Last week, the Central Bank of Russia met and decided to leave its key rate unchanged. That was totally expected. And the bank has also shifted its signal to the market towards a more hawkish stance, which was also not surprising given the current level of inflation. In the next 2 to 3 weeks, I actually expect inflation in annualized terms to continue to grow, but starting from mid-March onwards, I actually expect to see stabilization, and in April, I expect to see some gradual improvement in the annualized inflation. This is the base case scenario. I believe that the Central Bank of Russia would be watching also quite closely the inflation dynamic, which would or could actually trigger some moves from the regulator, including rate hikes. The earliest the central bank can increase the rate hike, in my view, would be at its April meeting scheduled for 23rd of April. At that time, I actually expect to have more clarity in the expected inflation trend, change in the inflation trend. If that happens and inflation starts to come down quite significantly, chances are that the central bank would decide to leave its rate unchanged. That's my base case scenario. I don't expect any rate moves this year from the central bank. However, there are strong chances that the central bank could actually start increasing the rate if inflation turns out to be more sticky at around 5% level. So we'll have to wait and see. In March, as I mentioned, I don't expect the central bank to change its monetary policy, but the first possible change could come in April. One particular factor that could influence the future inflation trend is the ruble exchange rate. With oil now trading at 63 plus dollars per barrel, ruble is trading at 73 plus rubles to the dollar, and ruble obviously is much weaker than the oil price. And there is a significant potential for ruble appreciation from the current levels. Moreover, any appreciation move in the currency would help quite significantly the central bank efforts to try to stabilize the price growth through affecting imported prices, particularly at times when food imports and other consumer imports tend to reach their annual highs. This is the second quarter. So potentially ruble can strengthen further. However, one factor that puts a lot of weight on the ruble moves is geopolitics. We have seen last week statements coming from European Union that European Union leaders have started discussions on possible new sanctions against Russia. Some clarity on this issue is possible in a week time from now, on 22nd of February, when there will be a meeting of European Union foreign ministers, and perhaps the final decision could be taken at European Union summit in March. Also, in parallel, we saw the reports that European Union is holding a series of negotiations with the US on sanctions against Russia. So all that means that the geopolitical risk in Russian assets and the ruble remains at high levels, although we don't expect to see any significant economic sanctions to be introduced against Russia, more on the personal sanctions side. But until there is clarity on this issue, I don't expect to see any significant moves in the ruble. However, if such clarity comes, chances are that the ruble can strengthen following announcement of, say, personal sanctions as opposed to economic sanctions. So these are the key factors that would continue to frame developments on Russian market and the ruble in the coming week. Thank you.